There's a growing sense in modern life that something foundational has shifted. People are asking questions that once seemed obvious, like what does it mean to be an adult? What does it mean to be a man or a woman? What is a family? What is my role in the world? These questions are not inherently problematic. Reflection can lead to clarity. But when entire societies begin asking them all at once and without shared reference points, the result is often not clarity, but confusion. This is where identity confusion in modern society begins to take shape. To understand why this is happening, it helps to revisit the patterns observed in the Universe 25 experiment. In the Universe 25 experiment, mice were placed in an environment where all physical needs were met. Food, water, shelter, and safety were abundant. Initially, the colony thrived. Social roles formed naturally. Dominant males established territory, the females nested and raised their young, and offspring matured into defined positions within the colony. But as the population grew, something critical changed. New generations of mice reached adulthood and found no available roles within the society of the colony. Territories were already claimed. Social positions were already filled. There was no pathway for integration. And as a result, some mice became aggressive, others withdrew completely. Parenting behaviors deteriorated, and social bonds weakened. The issue was not a lack of resources. The problem was a lack of functional roles within the system. Roles are often misunderstood as restrictive. In reality, they are what make the identity livable. A role provides a place to belong, a way to contribute, a framework for behavior, a context for relationships. Without roles, identity becomes abstract. It may exist conceptually, but it lacks expression in daily life. This is why identity confusion in modern society is not just about internal uncertainty. It is also about external structure. When roles become unclear, identity has nowhere to anchor. In previous generations, roles were more clearly defined. While they weren't perfect, they did provide structure. Childhood had expectations. Adulthood had markers. Family roles were more stable, and community involvement was more consistent. Over time, many of these structures have loosened. So today we have adulthood as being less clearly defined. Family structures vary widely. Community expectations are not cohesive. Individual choice is emphasized over shared norms. This shift has created a greater flexibility, but it has also introduced instability. When everything is open-ended, identity becomes something that must be constantly negotiated rather than steadily developed. The rise of identity confusion in modern society is not simply about having too many choices. It is about having choices and not having sufficient structure to support those choices. When identity is formed without grounding, it can become highly reactive to external validation, vulnerable to comparison, easily destabilized by change, and difficult to sustain over time. This does not mean that exploration is wrong. It means that exploration without an anchor can lead to fragmentation rather than formation. Identity is not formed in isolation. It is shaped through interactions. Healthy identity development includes modeling, seeing how others live out those roles, participation, engaging in responsibilities, feedback, having correction and affirmation, progress, moving through stages of growth. When these elements are present, individuals gradually step into identity. But when they're absent or inconsistent, identity formation becomes much more difficult. This is one of the parallels with the Universe 25 experiment. The younger mice were not integrated into the social system. They were present, but they were not shaped. They were not formed. In many modern environments, individuals are present within systems, but they're not fully formed by them. This can look like extended adolescence without a clear transition into adulthood. Participation in digital communities without embodied responsibility. Exposure to information without mentorship. And expression without accountability. The result is a gap between existence and identity. People are present, but they're not always rooted. Some role structures in the past were restrictive or unhealthy. It is understandable that societies have moved away from certain rigid expectations. However, when roles are removed without thoughtful replacement, a vacuum is created. And this vacuum does not remain empty. It is often filled by cultural trends, social media influence, peer-driven norms, where you get the Tide Pod eating, just as an example, and also personal preference without long-term stability. These substitutes can provide temporary direction, but they often lack the depth needed to sustain identity over time. Identity confusion in modern society is not just philosophical, it has emotional consequences. When roles are unclear, individuals begin to experience anxiety about the future, uncertainty in relationships, difficulty making decisions, a sense of drifting rather than progressing. Without a clear sense of place and purpose, even simple choices can feel overwhelming. This contributes to the broader sense of instability many people feel, even in otherwise stable environments. Identity and purpose are also closely linked. Identity answers the question, who am I? Whereas purpose answers the question, what am I here to do? When identity is unclear, purpose becomes difficult to define. And without purpose, motivation weakens. This creates a cycle of unclear roles that lead to identity confusion. Identity confusion then leads to lack of purpose. Lack of purpose leads to disengagement. This cycle mirrors what was observed in the later stages of the Universe 25 experiment, where environmental engagement declined as social roles disappeared. The solution is not to return to rigid or oppressive systems. It is a restoration of meaningful structure. Healthy structure will provide guidance without eliminating choice. It will provide encouragement of responsibility without removing individuality. And it also supports identity formation rather than dictating it. And this can take many forms. It may look like mentorship and intergenerational connection, clear expectations within families and communities, opportunities for responsibility at appropriate stages of life, of development, rhythms that create consistency and stability. See, structure does not limit to identity, it supports it. One of the most effective ways to address identity confusion in modern society is through participation. Identity becomes clearer when individuals take on responsibility, when they contribute to others, when they engage in consistent roles, and when they experience the impact or the consequences of their actions. These experiences provide feedback that shape identity in a grounded way. Rather than asking, who am I in isolation, the question becomes, who am I becoming through what I do and how I live? A Universe 25 experiment just demonstrates what happens when a population loses its ability to integrate individuals into meaningful roles. The lesson is not that structure should be imposed without question. It is that structure is necessary for identity to form. In modern society, the challenge is to rebuild systems that do three things. 1, offer clarity without rigidity. 2, provide roles without confinement. 3, support identity without fragmenting it. And this is not a quick fix. It is a gradual process of realignment. Identity confusion in modern society is deeply connected to the loss of purpose explored in the previous podcast. And in the next podcast, we will examine another dimension of this issue, the rise of passive disengagement and the beautiful ones phenomenon. If this has resonated with you, there's a deeper path toward restoring identity, rhythm, and purpose. You can find those in Creation Needs the Sabbath and The Eden Way. Both are books that are available on my website, healthyinheart.com, on Amazon, or in your local bookstore. Until next time, remember to stay healthy in heart.